This is Sportish.
Do it better.
This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish.
This is Sportish. Thanks for finding us on For the Fans or FTFnext.com or YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. We're 80% certain that this show has been posted in at least one of those locations. My name is Geoff Brault. He's Dr. Keith Strudler, Director of the School of Communication and Media at Montclair State University. And Keith, we start with an important question. Did our show air last week?
It's a great question. No one will ever know. I think it did. I just don't know what time these things sometimes happen. I'm going to hopefully get some clarity on this. And this is a really important thing, and you're not just doing this to kind of, it's some kind of vanity play for us. We actually want to know if you're watching this live on For the Fans or live to you, please tweet at us at SportishPod and just tell us what time it is. And a time zone would be helpful as well. Like, it's 9:30, not helpful. I need an AM and a PM and a time zone. That's all we need. So hopefully, it's the silly season. It's summer. Things get moved around. The Pacific League baseball, we're in the throes of pickleball. So sometimes things happen, but I'm not entirely certain. Again, it's kind of like Spinal Tap. The fact that they were playing in front of smaller arenas just makes their audience more selective.
Well, then we have the most selective audience in sports media. But the question is, would we rather every show reliably air at the time in which it's supposed to, or, and this is a big thought, would we rather have lost episodes?
Well, that's a good question. I thought you were going to ask if we'd rather just appear like they spin a wheel, like the FTF executives do like a Price is Right wheel, and they spin it and they're like 1 a.m. Sportish. By the way, not for nothing. The next great idea. This is how we should start a network, where we literally have a group of shows, and every week we spin the wheel and decide what time they're going to come on.
It's the hot wire of broadcasting. Paw Patrol again. Oh.
I don't think Paw Patrol does well at 11 p.m., but if that's what the wheel says, you get yourself in some trouble. You could get yourself in some trouble with some of the programming. So I don't know. The big news in my world.
Yeah, but we're not there yet. Because
right.
The segue from this topic to the next topic is, speaking of things no one wants to see, Keith Strudler, how was your night at the NBA draft?
Oh boy, it was late. Well, I'll tell you what, that thing goes on and on. So we took the long way to Brooklyn. I thought about this. So we ended up going to Manhattan, seeing some family, and then we took the subway down from the east side, because it's a one train. You get on the 456 or whatever, and you go down. Not that anyone cares. All right. And so we went down there. We got there early, got there at like 7:15. Newsflash, no reason to get to the NBA draft early. There's just no reason. We got there. We had nice seats. We were in the lower tier. So it's exciting. So here's what I'll say. It's exciting for like the 5 minutes before they. Oh. The 5 minutes before they start, because basically they introduce them out and it's like a runway show. And I explained what I was wearing today at work, which you thought was a little bit much. That is not even the price of admission to the NBA draft. Like, they are all gigged out. So it's exciting. Obviously, my 13-year-old son was very excited to see the Rockets, presumptive draft pick up close. And that was very exciting for him. The first few picks are exciting. It starts to fall off. Like, once you get to like 24 and they're like, see here, not here. It's like when they do raffles and they're not here. Let's see, for the dinner for two at Nolita's. Is it Larry Smith-Stein? Is he not here? He's not here. Okay, we'll do it again. We'll do it. Like, that's what it started to feel like towards the end. At the end of the first round, we said enough. There was Sloan was like, oh, we could stay to the second round. The second round didn't end till 1 a.m. or something like that. I don't even think the players were up. I think the players went to bed. So it's still, you know what? I'll say this: worth doing once in your life.
Really?
And the other thing,
compared to what?
An enema. The other thing that's crazy is when a pick goes like not according to plan, people go crazy. Like when they picked that was the Australian kid or whatever. He went early.
Center? Yeah, the big guy.
No, the point guard was the Australian. I think it was New Zealand. There was one kid that went like third or fourth, and they or fourth instead of fifth. People are like the gasp in the room is just unbelievable, and so they treat it like the biggest shock in the world. So that's kind of fun.
I can think of only one thing that could make being live at a draft fun, and that is doing some degenerative gambling while you're there. Let me tell you, you want to make a shock pick, and I've got a couple $100 on the line. Now I'm entertained. You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
Someone would be like, wow, that guy must really like the Raptors. I literally kind of just sat there like this the whole time. And then when they picked, so literally then at some point, I can't remember who it was. They picked Trey Mann. Was it Indiana? I can't remember who picked Trey Mann. And because he's a Gator. And so literally out of nowhere, people probably thought I was dead. I was like, yeah, Trey Mann, yeah. Sat back down.
I really hope someone just turned this episode on right there. Or if I may speak to our audience of one, which is the only reliable viewer / listener of every episode of Sportish, the person for the fans that inserts the commercials into each show. If that could be the thumbnail on the YouTube, just Keith's chest at camera level, pointing and screaming into the distance, I feel like we'd have a winner there.
Did we get any basketball short in that? I don't know. So whatever. It was but it was a tiring, the whole experience was exhausting. You wake up the next morning, feel like you just went to the moon and back.
Well, probably even more so when you realize that a draft could, if they wanted it to, take literally 5 minutes.
Yeah, the 5 minutes in between gets long. It gets really long. And you know what's also fun is like the Knicks fans are like, we're all excited, and they kept trading away the Knicks picks. And so they were there. At some point, Knicks fans are like, why are we here? Like we're not getting anything.
If you thought that Keith Strudler story was riveting, he sent the following to me in what I term our pre-show meeting, which is just a text message. And he said, I have to talk about the frog in my pool. Now, dear Sportish viewers and listeners, I don't think what's about to follow is going to be very entertaining. I don't think there's any way that you're going to be interested in this story at all. And if it was up to me, we wouldn't be telling it. However, with apologies, I now ask Keith Strudler, what happened with that frog in your pool?
By the way, there's no way you can stop the frog in the pool story, because you could try, but at some point I'm just going to start telling it one way or another. And so there's no way to stop it. So here's what happened. Sloan had a friend over the other night, and they went out swimming. It's like 9-10 o'clock at night, right? They're out swimming in the pool. Now the light in our pool doesn't work. I don't know why, because I don't know anything about anything in the pool. All right. So they come running in, and then Andra comes running in, and I'm somewhere watching TV, and Elliot comes running in. He's my 11-year-old. And they're like, there's a giant frog in the pool. And so they're coming to me saying, you need to do something about that. Now, obviously, if any of you know me well enough at this point, you have to believe I'm the worst person to do this. So I walk out.
If I may, there's a chance that this story can be saved. What size is the giant frog? What constitutes? Oh boy,
it's a big frog.
Let me tell you, if you had been like 7 feet long, I'd be like, now we're talking.
What is it?
Now
A genetic mutation? It's like a Star Wars movie.
Instead, what you have described, Keith Strudler, is just a regular sized frog.
It's huge. It's
That's
huge.
a pretty regular sized frog.
No, there's little.
It's not a toad.
Oh, it's a toad size. It's toad size.
I know it's bigger than frogs. I thought frogs were bigger than toads.
It's huge. So I said, and it's sitting right on the ledge in between the pool and the jacuzzi area. For those of you that know, of course, pool infrastructure, you have that little ledge that's kind of acts like so he's just sitting there. Now, we don't have a working net either, like the pole that attaches to the net. So I come out with a snow shovel.
Sorry, a working net. You know, there's no electronics in a net. Like if you got a little mesh at the end of a ring, you've got a working net.
But it doesn't attach to the pole. This is broken. There's like, so I've got like a handheld net. I've got a pole. This is what I come out with. I get Elliot. Elliot and I go to the garage. We come out with a pole, a net that doesn't attach to anything, that has a little hole in the bottom, a snow shovel. That was Elliot's idea, which I actually thought was a great idea. And a saucer that you use for sledding downhill in the snow, right? I figured that could be a vessel. And the frog sitting there. And I'm like, well, now what? And they're like, go get the frog. Now, I am scared to death of anything that moves. Like pretty much any animal that moves, I'm afraid of, right? Especially a slimy frog. Now, I want the frog to live. And I'm like, why are we moving the frog? Apparently, the pool guy told us he removed a frog before. If they stay in the chlorine too long, they eventually die. So we got to get the frog out. And now it's on me. So I kind of tap the frog or kind of splash around the frog. The frog now jumps into the pool. You know what I didn't know that frogs were able to do as well as they can? Swim. Frogs are swimmers.
Really? You didn't? They're amphibians.
They're real swimmers. They're like Olympic quality, like they're real swimmers. So now the frog has gone down towards the bottom of the pool. And so now we have a real situation because I blew it, right? And so we're all looking at each other. I got a 13-year-old and his friend. They've tapped out. Now it's down to my wife, myself, and Elliot. So first we say, Elliot, you're going to have to go get that frog. So Elliot goes and gets a suit and he comes out and there's no lights. We all now have flashlights and we're trying to locate the frog with a flashlight. Elliot jumps in. He is unable to get to the bottom of the pool to get the frog. He comes up and we're like, Elliot, you're going to have to try again. We do that. Not going to happen. So now it's down to the two adults. You would assume at this juncture, this is when I should shine, right?
No. If you have made it through the previous 68 or so episodes of this program, you do not assume that. There is no one who's involved in the show that assumes that that's what would happen next.
So my wife is like, I cannot believe you're going to make me do this. So Andra goes, straps in inside, puts on a bathing suit, comes out, and she's like, I hate getting in a cold pool. Well, somehow it turns out some Yahoo had turned on the heater. Our pool is like the temperature of a hot tub, I come to find out. Okay. So this whole adventure,
the frog has sank to the bottom.
Yeah, this whole adventure, yeah. You remember the frog doesn't know about being in the boiling pot? This frog was about to find out. I'm probably spent $1,000 on this adventure. So Andra then goes in. She dives down several times. We finally get the frog to a place where he has now come up towards a near, like a higher part of the pool, and he's kind of surfacing a little bit. We give Andra the net. She gets the frog in the net, runs across the street so he doesn't jump back in the pool, and get him near where there's a little bit of grassy and lake area. So that's the story of the frog. I essentially forced my wife to jump into the pool because I'm afraid, because what's going to happen? I'm not afraid of I got close to the frog. What's going to happen? The frog's going to jump on, and he's going to jump on you. And you're like, there's a frog on me. All right,
so my expectations for that story were extremely low. And you came in under them. Somehow that story was less than what I was expecting.
What do you think was going to happen?
Maybe the frog got stuck in the heater, or the little filter system. Maybe the frog jumped on somebody, or I don't know.
There's no value.
That normally large frog.
It was a large frog. This frog is a large frog. Is there no value to the fact that I essentially forced my wife to go in and go save the frog because I'm too afraid to touch the frog?
Yeah. Just you acting like you.
All right, that's my frog.
Just par for the course. It would have been a better story if you were like, and then I was heroic, and we all would have been like, why now?
At any rate, so we saved the frog, though. Good for him. I don't know if it's a him. I don't know.
Well, if that story wasn't the death of Sportish, we may be seeing the death of college sports. I am so proud of that transition.
All right, God almighty.
We talked last week about Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC. It looks like that's going to happen. Clemson and Florida State have now put out feelers about joining the SEC, which means that basically all the good teams are going to be in the SEC. The Big 12 and Pac-12 are going to work together, whatever that means.
Well, you know what I think? I'm assuming the Big 12 or the Pac-12 are just going to tutor the Big 12. It's fine. It's my academic joke. They didn't like the fact that they would work together is actually mystifying to me. The Pac-12 feeling a little desperate if they're slumming it with the Big 12, which, by the way, the Big 12 could not be a worse name at this point. They're down to 8.
Yeah, they're down to and none of the 8 are particularly big.
But this is like when you call a fat guy tiny. Like that's what it's turning into right now.
If conference realignment is not the death of college sports, name, image, and likeness is proving to be that. And this doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It doesn't mean it shouldn't be happening. It just means that what college sports were, they are no longer, which I think is evidenced by the fact that a Southlake Carroll quarterback, a high school quarterback in Texas, who is the top ranked player in the country, his name is Quinn Ewers. He's 18 years old. He is skipping his senior year of high school and going straight to Ohio State. So essentially, he's only been in high school for 3 years. He's going to graduate early and enroll in Ohio State. The reason he's doing that is because the Texas high school, interscholastic sports board, whatever they call it, said that you're not allowed to profit off your name, image, and likeness the way a college student is. So he goes, well, then fine. I'm going to go be a college student so that I can profit off my name, image, and likeness, which I don't particularly have a problem with. But if you were someone who was a fan of the way athletics were set up in this country prior to a month ago, it's never going to be like that again.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's going to be really tough to put the genie back in the bottle. And those of you that don't know Southlake Carroll, this is a Friday Night Lights kind of situation. This is this is one of the big boys, right? And they play in a massive stadium and they compete for 5A state championships and all that kind of good stuff. And they send a lot of guys from that program, obviously the Division I colleges and universities. There are a lot of questions that get raised with this. First of all, and I think I know the answer, but why is it that all of a sudden people can be like, I'm done with high school now? Like when I was in high school, you did have to finish the track. Like you had to go, like you can't, like, I don't want word of this to get around in my house because I'm afraid like Sloan at some point is going to be like, I'm done. I'm finished. I'm ready to go to college. So I've always wondered about that. I think it may have something to do with the fact that so many of these athletes take a gap year between kind of junior high and high school, essentially. Yeah. And then they do some summer courses to accommodate this. Because a lot of them go a semester early to prep. Like that happens all the time.
Most elite athletes hold themselves back a year at some point just for physical development, right? So like I looked up this kid's age and it's 18, like 18 years old is the age that most people go to college for the first time. So I mean, it seems like that's,
I was 17
in play.
I was
also 17 when I was a freshman in college. So we got that in common. This kid is 18. Neither hockey of us made like any money off our name, image, and likeness.
Hockey players like 26 when they start. So there is that question of like, well, you just leave high school. So it does kind of also beg the question: what was this kid doing during his senior year of high school? Like if he was already essentially done with classes, like what is he doing?
That imagine probably just loaded up on electives, like anybody who doesn't want to graduate early does.
I've always wanted to learn how to do some wood carving. So, so there's that. All right. Second is, I guess he's 18, so he's not a minor. At some point you have like, it does change the calculus probably a little bit if it's minors versus adults that are going through this process, because there's a little bit different. You wonder about the sustainability of something like this. Like that it's not like, all right, so you get one kid who's going and it works out and he's going to make some money. The projections, the $1 million for a kid that I assume is going to ride the bench for a year, that number,
or longer.
Right. So can you explain? I mean, I actually think we might need to get a real expert on this show again. But someone's going to need to talk me through some of these projections. Because if someone's going to tell me that the third string QB, I don't know if you've seen some of the quarterbacks that have come out of Ohio State recently, they're good, right? And a lot of them who are really good, who become like top NFL draft picks, are still riding the bench because there's so much talent on that team, right? And by the way, Ohio State is Alabama, like it's the Alabama of the North, the Alabama of the Midwest. So they have more talent than they need, right? One of those few schools where the second string might be able to beat a lot of other, good Division I programs. I don't understand the market for $1 million of sponsorships for a kid that's quite honestly not seeing the light of day.
Yeah, well, I don't think this kid's going to get $1 million. I do think he'll make some money. Ohio State's one of a handful of schools that have essentially started a licensing arm to allow all of their athletes to sort of pool together and profit off of jersey sales and things like that. I'm sure he'll get a cut of that. I'm sure he'll get, some speculative money just based on the fact that he might be great one day. And at the end of the day, $100,000 to a lot of these corporations is nothing to start a sponsorship agreement with someone who might one day be worth, 40, 50 times that. So he'll probably get some money that way. But I mean, I think the athletes that will be making that kind of money are relatively few and far between when you consider how many folks play NCAA athletics.
Yeah.
But that said, even if we were to say, hey, you're going to make 50 grand next year versus you're going to make $0 as a high school senior and end up in the exact same place you are right now, 12 months later, why not take the 50 grand or whatever that number is? I mean, it seems like it's better than the alternative of getting nothing. If you're worth 50 grand, take it.
Yeah, I guess it's a question then of individual priorities, right? For some people, yes. For some people, no. For some people, they'd rather have. I mean, look, are we now at a point where every good high school football player is going to want to give up their senior year of high school? I mean, and maybe the answer is yes. Maybe that's. But I mean, we both. Your favorite movie. Varsity Blues.
Not my favorite movie. A good movie. A good movie that you think is a terrible movie, but it isn't. That's a good movie.
The movie that you defended to your dying breath, the movie that you would die for, the hill that you would die on, that movie, right? That movie featuring who's the Dawson Creek guy?
James Vanderbeek.
James Vanderbeek, right? Who became QB1 and lived the life. Right. And the guy before him, who was the guy before him? What was that guy?
Paul Walker, Lance Harbor.
Paul Walker, who was absolutely living the life. And his girlfriend, who was.
Well, there were two. There was Allie Larder was the one.
Allie
with
Larder.
The whipped cream. Yeah. Yeah. And then there was the other one who I don't remember.
Wasn't that Amy Smart?
Yes, it was Amy Smart.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was Amy Smart.
All right. So it seems to me you love that movie. It looked like they were having a good time their senior year of high school playing football. Although coach didn't make it fun because he was trying to give shot. Spoiler alert. Now we're just doing plot twists do you want me to go back? Just newsflash. We want to take you inside the paywall. Before the show started, I was doing dramatic readings of AirPod charging reviews. I can go back to that. So I don't see a sustainable model where all of these high school students then segue. Like, I don't see how that works. I'm not saying it. I have no problem with it. Chase the money. I just don't see how it works.
Well, most of them just won't be able to, right? Most of them aren't good enough. The very high end, though, and with this whole NIL, I guess lack of legislation is going to expose is the very high end is an extremely narrow slice, and they're going to live a much, much different life than everybody else. And a lot of people are going to learn very quickly that they might be good enough, but they're not elite. And those folks, are going to want, I think, what Quinn Ewers is doing, basically saying, well, I'm just going to go write my ticket to Ohio State because I'm good enough to be able to do that. And then I'm going to cash those checks. I'm enough to be able to do that too. But I think the vast majority are going to realize that the best they're going to do is maybe a couple of cans of, the local fruit punch that's being manufactured by that mom and pop shop down the street for a couple Instagram posts. Like, that is the vast majority of this name, image, and likeness stuff. Most people aren't playing in the realm of six figures.
No, and so what you illuminated there, though, and this is whether you're talking about the way these conferences are kind of realigning or exploding, and this is the gap between the haves and the have-nots is going to be exacerbated in a way we've never seen before. Central Michigan, it was nice knowing you. You are done. By the way, Western Michigan, you as well. Bowling Green, enjoy.
But unless, and this is why I'm a proponent of the name, image, and likeness, unless you develop an audience, right? Just because if you play for Central Michigan.
Oh, come on. I mean,
right. Well, I'm just saying what it's going to force you to do is develop skills outside of just playing a sport, right? So you're going to be paid less for being an athlete, like doing athletics, than you will for being an athlete who has a talent.
But the entire, all of these, just thinking more macro, these programs are going to, like, you at some point the SEC is going to have the 24 best teams on the Eastern Seaboard. Like they're gonna soak up.
Don't sell them short. They'll have some of the good ones out west too.
Well, so I mean, they're going to go Texas, Oklahoma. They're going to swoop that. They're going to make a U out of the country, and then essentially you're going to get the Big Ten, Pac-12 kind of alliance that's going to put together the other half, right? And they're going to get 24. You're going to get 48 teams that are going to say, why are we listening to anything that the NCAA says? Because we are more important than this body for which we are a part of. Let's just do our thing. You'll have Division A, Division B. They'll play their things. They'll have a playoff at the end, and everyone else is out. Like, that's it. That's done. We're done.
Well, the NCAA is done. I mean, does that organization make it 10 more years? Like,
not in its current.
It will render them irrelevant.
Well, it will, because someone's going to have to regulate cross country and field hockey. But that's what it's. I mean, but it will be a different organization. I do think that college football, whether it's deemed an NCAA sport or not, will be played outside of the canon of whatever the NCAA is.
Yeah, but what's left to regulate at this point?
You got a lot of stuff to regulate. A lot of stuff. Have you ever been to an indoor track meet? Do you think those rules? Yeah,
we don't need a national body to do that. Like, first of all, those already exist. We have USA Track and Field. Like, those things exist already. Why do we need another layer of oversight?
I don't know. There's gonna I think the NCAA. I think the NCAA will continue to exist. It was here before us. It'll outlive us. But it's not going to be. It's not. Don't be all like alarmists. Like by the way, and I want to get ahead of this. And we didn't discuss this. I know we declared the pandemic over.
We did, and I'm confident we did not jump the gun on that either.
I'm starting to wonder, because I've been looking at the numbers, and the numbers tell a different story. Numbers never lie. We declared it over. The numbers that were in the New York Times today, far higher than long before we had declared the pandemic over. Are you confident that Sportish has not, perhaps we declared a trade and scared it off? Perhaps.
No. I think we've moved on. You talk about the genie being out of the bottle. Once those masks came off, they went right into the fire, and I don't believe they're going to be put back on again. Do you really see a world, as we sit here in the middle of August, where NFL stadiums across America, where college stadiums across America aren't filled to capacity in 30 days?
It's a tough one. I mean, we're having a lot of if you work at a university, you're having a lot of interesting conversations right now. No, I agree with you, because you know what there are? There are a lot of ticket holders that are excited about getting themselves into some of that college football stadium. But I will tell you, I was all bullish on this. I've become less so in the past days.
I think the articles will be written. The numbers will continue to be published. They will continue to escalate, and things won't change. That's my opinion.
We're comfortable. We're comfortable essentially being on the front edge. Sportish, what may have been the vanguard of declaring the pandemic over. It's entirely possible.
No, there were outlets that were declaring it over in March 2020. That's like whenever I look up, like I see somebody does something in Major League Baseball, and I'm like, oh, I bet that's never happened before. And you look it up, and it's like, oh, it's happened 417 times. Like, to be the first to do something, you start to think, it's like, oh, when did that? That was probably maybe 10 years ago. Oh, the first time was, the internet was invented in 1978. Yeah, wow, they really were up ahead of it.
There are some inventions that you really are. And you have to think those people died crazy, because they probably in 1978, they're like, this is going to change the world. And everyone's like, you are crazy. Because I mean, up until like 7 months ago, people are like, streaming TV movies will be here forever. Like, right? I mean, that's how slow people change, right? And there were people 30 years ago being like, cinemas are dead. No one will ever trust me. This is going to happen, right? It has to be frustrating. The NCAA, though, to take a contrarian viewpoint on that, the NCAA is not going to die right now. But I do think, and the NCAA has got bigger fish to fry. Well, I guess there's nothing bigger than college football. But the NCAA is now kind of dealing with certainly with gender equity. They're going to have to deal. Really, are going to have a concerned effort with how they're going to handle the virus. So, I mean, Mark Emmert, who, is representative of all these different universities, I think they're going to have to let Alabama be Alabama and Texas. Like, they can't, as I wrote in a column today, they cannot stop this civil war. Like, this is like the Avengers civil, like, it's going to happen. Like, they are going to have to let this play out. And too bad, TCU. Like, it was nice thinking you were a big team. You're not anymore. Like, this is just going to happen.
Their only power left was amateurism and the NCAA men's basketball tournament. And they've lost half of that. And then you talk about the gender equity thing, that report that came out, which essentially examined the inequities between men's and women's basketball, but was really the inequities between men's basketball and every other NCAA sport. Damning. I mean, you've got it almost to the point where you wonder how Mark Emmert can keep his job, because the report just essentially details throughout how he constantly undervalued every other property except men's basketball just to get it over, just to not have to think about it, just to make it an afterthought, to say, hey, the only thing we want to think about is this. Everything else we'll get what we can get, and that's fine. But, they were saying by some estimates that the women's basketball tournament alone could be worth $100 million a year. And right now it's part of a $34 million a year package with like 18 other championships. So that's if you're operating a nonprofit, that is some financial malfeasance to leave that kind of money on the table if you're the chief executive.
I hear you. I mean, you think about the money we leave on the table by not knowing when our show airs.
By not knowing when our show airs, the Olive Garden money that we refuse to take on principle.
By the way, I sent you a picture. TGI Fridays in the city closed down.
Heartbroken. You mean New York City, the space with more great restaurants per capita than anywhere else on the globe, couldn't sustain a TGI Fridays.
I'm going to tell you a terrible story about one of Andre's old bosses. She'll hate. Well, it's a good thing she'll never watch. But he was like from Arizona, and he was and they were all up in the city, and they were at a hotel, and they were going to go out to dinner.
I see where it's going.
and he was going to he's big shot. And he's like, oh, I know a place. I know a place. And I know a place. And he literally took them to TGI Fridays. He didn't just say, this wasn't just one of these like, it's right here. Let's just go. I want to get back to that. He came to New York City, convened his team, and said, folks, I know a place. I know a place. It's
like Michael Scott getting his New York slice from Sbarro.
I like to go to my favorite pizza. Like, he literally told them, I know a place. What are your thoughts on hula hands as we climb up the ladder?
Basically the same as a TGI Fridays. They're all the same.
Now, we were considering going. I just need you to know that we were considering going.
Why?
I don't know. It popped up, and Andre was convinced hula hands is a step up from the TGI Fridays.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I don't think so.
All right. What's next on our rundown?
One of the best moments. This is a heartwarming moment in sports, right? Our show hasn't been heartwarming enough. Olympic high jumpers Mutaz Barshim of Qatar and Gianmarco Tamberi of Italy shared the gold medal in high jump. That's cool, right? What a great sports moment that is. Isn't that great? Not if you ask Twitter, because if you ask Twitter, this is the worst thing to ever happen to competition. All of a sudden, people who couldn't spell high jump 2 weeks ago are now very upset that these two athletes, instead of competing to the death with a jump off, that these two athletes had what I thought was one of the coolest moments of sportsmanship, one of the most enduring Olympic moments of my lifetime, an image you'll remember forever. And people on the internet just crapped all over it.
So here's the thing. And by the way, did it not seem to you, because as I read the articles, I read them just like you did. Mm-hmm. Did it not seem to you as if they almost didn't have a plan for this? Like the official came over and he goes, here's what we could do. What how about if we just keep jumping? Or you tell, like, how is there not a more, like, this should have been an automatic. Like, there never should have been a point at which everyone's like, what are we going to do next? Like, it wasn't like they jumped higher than we've used all the poles in the building. We can't go any higher. Like, and then they were like, jump over that building. Like, jump over that. Like, they could have done it like the dunk contest. Let's get a man to stand on top of it, and you have to jump over him. So,
well, from what I understand is it's a pretty great statistical improbability that they would have both essentially had the exact same score up to this point,
yes.
And that they both couldn't clear the next.
They basically had both, because what you do obviously in high jump is you go back to the last, how many times it take them to,
right.
But they both had done the same trajectory, and then neither of them got anywhere on the right. next one. So they were all the exact, yeah. But it's not a statistic. Like, they have rules for everything.
Sure. Yeah. But I mean, it's a little unfair to decide the Olympic gold medal by basically waiting for someone to fail at something they already succeeded at, right? Because what they were going to do was just have them keep jumping at 2.37 meters until one of them didn't clear it. But they had already cleared 2.37 meters. So it would seem pretty unfair to then be like, well, which one of you is going to mess up first? Like, that's just kind of a foolish way to determine this.
Soccer? Isn't that what they do in shootouts in soccer?
Yes, which I don't like either.
So they don't. Now, the other thing that was very obvious, one of them had been like a silver medalist, had missed out.
The Italian.
And he's like, look, I am not losing this one too.
It's like, he could not wait to accept that deal. When Barshim from Qatar was like, can we both have gold? The Italian was like, we can.
So do you think, look, I'm totally fine with it, but do you think that makes it any more hollow?
No, I think it makes it better. I think it makes it more special, because quite honestly, there are an awful lot of Olympic gold medals. There are very few shared Olympic gold medals. Like, I think those images, I think that story is way better. It's a way better, more rare story.
Okay.
And it's more about what the Olympics is all about, at least what the Olympics is supposed to be all about, than just winning regularly. Like,
so you'd rather have a shared gold medal than your own gold medal.
I think so. Yeah. If I had achieved, if I didn't mess up at all, right? Like, I don't want a gold medal out of pity, right? If I earned it, same as the other guy earned it, I think a share is a fair.
No, but I'm just saying in general, would you rather have a shared gold medal or your own gold medal?
I don't know if you can compare them, because in my mind, if you have a gold medal, it doesn't matter who else has a gold. Like, you can only control what you do. So if you feel like you put on a gold medal winning performance, I think you should have a gold medal.
Do you think this is a gold medal winning show? Do you think this performance?
Absolutely. I don't think we got through the qualifying heats.
I do think
gold medals is interesting, because I will say one thing about the Olympics that drives me insane is all these people talking about how great the silver medal is. You heard Katie Ledecky say this. You hear so many of these athletes come out and they talk about, finishing second, which is an accomplishment. It absolutely is. But they come out and say ludicrous statements like, to us, that silver medal was just
this was a grievance we both had. This is where we're going to get in trouble when I know where the public is on. When Simone Biles said, hey, I can't do the team competition, and the women's team, the U.S. American women's team, won the silver, and they came out and they said, to us, this is a gold. And I was like, oh, wait, time out.
It's terrible. It's terrible. Yeah. Now, I don't think it goes so
that's
far.
Like, no offense to For the Fans. That's like us being like, to us, this is ESPN prime time.
And look, not to go so far as there was, I believe, a British
when you're eating your pasta dish, at the Olive Garden, to be like, to us, this is Rome.
It doesn't have to swing so far in the other direction. There was a British boxer who I guess lost the gold medal match, and his interview was heartbreaking. He was like, I'm a failure, and this is the worst day of my life. I'm like, well, I don't think that's true either. But did you see the headlines?
Do you see the headlines for the Kenyan? The headlines from the Kenyan after the 3,000 meter steeplechase, and
it's probably not a headline. I believe that's a sub headline on page 3C. I don't think that made
in Kenya. In Kenya, their newscast led with Kenyans lose the 3,000 steeplechase. It was not win the silver and bronze. Kenyans lose the 3,000 meter steeplechase. They take that sport seriously. That is their basketball. I agree. Look, but I'm sure he had dreamed about the gold his entire life. He dreamed about it his entire life. He probably also just lost hundreds of thousands of dollars by not getting the endorsement deals that come with a gold medal. But yes, I get that, but I agree. I do feel that some people have made it like this is the same as a gold. I'm like, well, I bet the gold medalist doesn't feel that way. He feels like he got the gold or she got the gold.
One last thing to talk about before we wrap up this episode of Sportish. And a reminder, you can find it again on YouTube, ftfnext.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. We are a lot of things. We're a show that began chronicling sports return after the COVID-19 pandemic, which, as mentioned, is now over and has been for quite some time.
I mean, by the way, the views expressed in this program do not reflect the network, science, the CDC. We do, and by the way, do not take medical advice from this program. That's the one thing we want you to take away. Do not plan life events. Just because we said the pandemic is over does not mean it's time to head down to Mardi Gras. I'm just saying, do your own research. This is our perspective, though. It's over.
What doesn't mean it's not time to head down to Mardi Gras is that it is August. So if you were planning on going to New Orleans, that would be fine. But just don't expect Mardi Gras to be happening.
By the way, don't send people down. Have you seen their chart? Have you seen their graph?
I'm sure it's not good.
Oh no.
Is there a good chart anywhere? There's no good charts left.
Louisiana went up a percentage. I didn't know you were able to do it was like 8,000. I was like, that's not, I didn't know that was a calculatable percentage. It was a number that didn't make sense. I think it's to the point where they could stop reporting because everyone has COVID now. They have to have it. Like there's not that many people there.
The point here is our show is many things. And one thing that it is a Disney podcast. We are all about the inner workings of Disney, and that's because we had on some Disney experts in the past when the NBA bubble was down there. We are at the forefront of all the goings-on in Walt Disney World down in Orlando. And Keith Strudler, I know you and I are both Star Wars fans. Well, we could take part, if we wanted to, us or anyone else, an immersive 2-day Star Wars hotel experience down in Orlando. You get a 48-hour stay in this new Star Wars hotel where everyone's in costume and the entire trip is an immersive experience. So you get to interact with characters.
Time out. Is this like a cosplay kind of thing?
Yes, actually, it's been referred to as like a LARPing weekend. So you're in this hotel that's designed to be like you're in the world of Star Wars. No 2 days are alike. You get to train with lightsabers and learn how to play Star Wars games, and you get missions, and you're in this world, right? You get VIP access to the Star Wars world at Hollywood Studios, which is freaking awesome. It goes so deep as that the windows in your hotel room aren't windows at all. They're LED screens showing you like space. So it's as though you're flying through space, even when you're just sitting in your hotel room trying to go to sleep. It is a totally immersive experience in the Star Wars universe for 48 hours. And Keith, look, if you and I want to go do it, all it's going to cost us is starting at $4,800.
Now, is that for that?
I believe that's less per night than Jeff Bezos spent to go to space.
But it's got to be. You don't want to have a crappy room when you go down there. You'd like,
that's
you don't
starting.
want to get then. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to get down there and be like, do we have to share the bed? First of all, I think it would be very weird if the two of us went and did it together. I think that would be a very weird thing, although no one else in this house is going to take it on. So, hey, Andra, I just booked us for a very expensive vacation. How disappointed. I'm like, just get on the plane. I'm not even going to tell you. And then we blindfold her and she wakes up and then there's Chewbacca sitting right. We're here.
Like when Homer got Marge the bowling ball for their anniversary.
How disappointing would that be? That's $6,000.
And that's what it would be if you brought a family or wanted a premium experience. Yeah. $6,000 for 2 nights.
And what, it's not a real lightsaber. Well, I guess.
Yeah, I guess not. Guess it depends on your definition of real.
Is James Earl Jones there? Is he like playing? Is he? I dare I ask? Is he still with us?
I believe he is. Yes.
You believe though, you don't know.
Yeah, I'm not putting money on it, but I believe he is.
Okay.
It's the interesting part about it is like apparently you're literally living in the world. So to me, if this is less interesting from a guest perspective, this seems like the coolest job in the universe. Like you just get to spend your life pretending to be in Star Wars.
How annoying though is that? Like, dun 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 dun. Like how much like that comes on you probably like how annoying is that after a while? And like what do they eat on Star Wars? Like what's the food? Like this is like if you like work in like medieval feast, like in one of those jousting places, and they're like, "Oh, would you like a turkey leg?" Like, by the way, I don't know why they're speaking like pirates. Arr! I'm gonna joust you. I get me turkey leg and me hook and get on me horse.
They're Irish. Why did they become Irish?
So I don't think the job's as cool as you think it is. I don't think it's as cool as you think it is. I think after day 4, is there a fan in that Chewbacca suit? Because I'll tell you what, it gets hot. It gets hot. The stank inside that suit after like day 12. I told you 5-minute breaks, nothing more. The head goes back on. Stay in character. No smoking in the Star Wars. I mean, so do you wake up and what's his face? Like who's the new bad guy? What's his name?
Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren. He's I mean, spoiler alert, he's dead now too, right?
Yeah. Not in real life, but the character.
No, of course not. No, he's so does he wake up one night with like the blazing red lightsaber? Or, that would scare the hell out of me. I don't need that.
I think that's part of what you pay for in the immersive experience.
And it's not, I mean, I'll ask the adult question. This is not kinky or anything, right? Because I'm thinking that might get you your audience. 6,000 for that for kinky
well,
Star
look
Wars.
At the time. That's all we've got for this episode of Sportish. We'll be back next week with our plans for the Sportish immersive hotel experience. Just 2 days of us shouting opinions at you that you never asked for. All for the low, low price of $4,800 per couple. Bring your loved ones, everyone. He's Keith. I'm Geoff. We remind you to please go to ftfnext.com, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Download, like, review this episode of Sportish. And please tell us if and when we aired. We really, really want to know. We'll see you next week, maybe. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Sportish. See you next time.